Welcome to the Forged by Trust podcast. I'm your host, Robin Dreeke, former U.S. Marine, spy recruiter, best-selling author, and your trusted and communication expert. Today's episode, Nothing Left to Chance, is brought to you by my guest, Marty Groover, and his incredible book, Speed of Advance. Marty Groover spent more than 2 decades leading an intricate operational symphony of communications, processes, computer systems, and weapons programs as a surface warfare officer. In his book, Speed of Advance, Marty shares what he experienced in the Navy firsthand, how to harness the power of technology to drive untouchable results. By eliminating damaging silos and increased skill sets, Marty shows you how to create an enhanced, synchronized system between technology and the people who use it, a process that will lead you into the 4th Industrial Revolution. Lean, impactful, intersected, these are the businesses that will thrive in the challenges of Industry 4.0. Coming up next on the Forged by Trust podcast.
5 of us living in an 840 square foot mobile home with 1 bathroom. So that was quite the forging experience. It drove me my whole life to do things differently. The chief said, "Hey, are you going to let a pair of underwear kick your ass because you had to fold a pair of whitey tighties a certain way?" You can't do everything by yourself. If you try to do it by yourself, you're going to fail. So you've got to figure out how to engage people and use them to the level of their abilities. There's 3 P's in life that I was taught: perspective, personality, and perception. And so Speed of Advance to me was that symbol of we're going to measure actual versus plan on everything, and it's going to make sense to drive mission and what we're doing.
Welcome to the show. I'm Robin Dreeke, and on the Forged by Trust podcast, we decode the interpersonal communication skills of the world's most acclaimed forgers of trust. We unlock the skills and techniques from spies, spy recruiters, master interrogators, globally recognized behavioral experts, C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, acclaimed authors, and thought leaders. Each episode provides specific actions that you can immediately apply to any aspect of your personal or professional life. Today's episode, Nothing Left to Chance, is with my good friend, retired Navy surface warfare officer, author, and thought leader, Marty Groover. Marty Groover is a retired naval officer with a passion for driving business outcomes with operational technology. He is a leading partner in the Industry 4.0 practice for the C5MI business transformation firm. In the Navy, nothing is left to chance. Every strategy is tested and every resource is utilized with minimal excess and remarkable efficiency. This streamlined convergence of people, processes, and technology is the pinnacle of productivity, and its benefits resonate far beyond military endeavors. Marty has generated tens of millions of dollars for dozens of Fortune 100 companies, including Caterpillar, John Deere, Rivian Motors, and the Defense Logistics Agency, with more than 2 decades as a surface warfare officer in the U.S. Navy. Marty's a recognized thought leader in the SAP partner base and is known for his extensive insight in production planning, lean manufacturing, and ERP systems. During the episode today, we talk about the importance of a mentor at all stages, developing a problem-solving work ethic, engaging people to the level of their abilities, the 3 P's in life: perspective, personality, and perception, and your speed of advance. So Marty, welcome to the show. I've been waiting for this for a long time. You've been very patient. Greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, it's funny. I got 2 today, so it's funny how they stack up.
Oh, it's all good. And as you can see, you got your book behind you. I got your book behind me. Fantastic read. And I got to preempt the entire thing right now because you are one of my most intimidating guests I've ever had on. And that's because you have a 50-pound brain and I do not. You have the
I don't know about that.
And so that actually gets me to my intimidation point, and that is my dichotomy is out of balance when it comes to the interpersonal side and the technical side. And so I thank you in advance for your patience with me.
And I'm good with that too, because a lot of times with the people side of it, for me, the technology is great, but if you can't engage the people and you can't get the results and you can't, it doesn't matter about the technology. So I'm good with that.
So with that, I want to start off with my typical type origin question. And what was a spark that created your desire to, I'm going to give you kind of a choice to start with. 1, to serve in the Navy for so long, / leadership and patriotism. So kind of start where you want on that one, but what was that spark?
So For joining the Navy is kind of interesting. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. You have counselors in high school. Hey, you need to be an engineer, manufacturing engineer, mechanical engineer, something like that. And
okay, now hold on. This is the fastest I've ever stopped anyone. Okay, because you had counselors actually said things like that. Where'd you go to school?
Upstate New York, Dry New York. And
oh yeah.
So I got put in a program that was a 5x2 in the SUNY program. There I was going to go physics 3 years and then mechanical engineering 2 years. I would have got a 5, they called it a 5-3 or 5-2 program, or 3, something like that. But it would have been 5 years because of my aptitudes with the stuff that I was doing, the way they saw me in high school. So I had great counselors that wanted me to do these things, but I didn't really understand it because, my mom was single. I didn't have a dad that really, helped mentor me like that. I had no leadership to help mentor me that way. So, but I was always good at math and science.
So, wow, you got a lot of great unpacking there that starts setting our destiny in place. So tell me about this high school you went to and what kind of challenges did you face with a single parent at home?
Yeah, so I was the oldest of 4 children. My mom was single.
Wow.
And my dad was nowhere near us. So, it's pretty tough when you don't have a mentor like that. And New York schools had the Regent program. So I was signed up for that. I don't know if you remember that. You had to take all these tests at the end of the year and pass them to get your Regents diploma. So I did that. And, I did school as much as I had to do sports. And, I was always bored with school. Just get to the point, I really didn't like sitting around waiting for it. I just wanted to learn it and get on to the next event. I could always go faster than the other kids. So, it's just a different, at the time I didn't know what it was, and then they put me in these programs and I was going to do that, but my parents just didn't have any money. So when I graduated, I went to Florida and I started going to community college down there. And I worked in several different jobs. I started working in a job at the property appraiser's office, actually doing the math. We were converting manual property record cards over to a Cobalt system. And I was the troubleshooter that figured out how to fix the math when they weren't square and fixing computer issues that weren't right for data, entry.
So I'm curious about your time in New York, because these are forging years in our lives. Where were you in the birth order of 4?
I was the oldest.
All right. So here you are, not much money, oldest of 4, probably took on a lot of responsibilities at home.
Started working at 13 years old. And yeah, we were so poor that I was working and my sister was a basketball star. And I never forget, my mom didn't have enough money to buy her Nike sneakers, but I was working. So I bought her some really, some leather Nike sneakers. And that's always something that we always have together to talk about. But yeah, that's the way it was. I mean, we started out in a mobile home. I said this when I commissioned my World Cap boat a couple of years ago. I did a commissioning party and I said, I started out, my mom kept this, and I don't know why she did, but she gave it to me. But it was a receipt after my parents got divorced. My grandfather helped her get a mobile home. There was 5 of us living in an 840 square foot mobile home with 1 bathroom. So that was quite the forging experience to say, it drove me my whole life, to do things differently.
We have so much in common other than the sibling numbers. Marty, that's a lot of challenges. You learned a lot of self-reliance and resilience, obviously, during those years. I'm not thinking you made it through there by yourself. Teachers, mentors, guides, or people by your side encouraging you?
Took me under their wing. The principal was one of my best friends' father, and he kind of took me under his wing. And I had another friend that I played on a golf team with. In fact, I'm still friends with him. I just saw him at my 40th high school reunion, Joe Draghi. His dad would always kind of look out. So I had some people that looked out for me, and they knew I played sports, and, they'd be like, hey, we saw you guys over here. Don't be getting in trouble. And, just kind of looking out for things. And so
what do you think were some key takeaways at that age that you learned from all those experiences that you brought forward with you?
I mean, I think I always wanted, like, one of the things I put in my high school, that I'll be drinking martinis and playing golf at 3, when I succeed. So I always had a vision, and I was a dreamer about what I was going to do and what my skills were and how I was going to be able to do it. So I always had a lot of confidence in myself, and probably for no other reason than just to put up a front, when you have nobody, you don't have any older brothers, you're in your school, you got to kind of be tough, right? So you work on that exterior, that you're confident, that you're not, you're not shy, and you kind of work on that.
Do you think that you also probably had some confidence because you actually were delivering, in the sense of you had a problem to solve, like your sister didn't have Nike sneakers and you solved that problem? So at a young age, as challenging as it was, you were problem solving because of your resilience and your work ethic. Yes.
And my mother taught us work ethic. My mother died recently. My sister and I always talk about that. Thank God. The work ethic she gave us, I mean, she wouldn't let us slack on cleaning things. If we didn't do it right, we did it again. And we always had work we had to do to get done. And everybody had to work in our family to make it work. And so I think that sets a good foundation. But then, just wanting things. I broke every record in high school swimming. I was always I had the discipline to do this stuff and try to be the best. I don't know how to describe it, but I always felt like I was, I knew more, could do more things than other people could.
Yeah. And you said earlier that you wanted to have success at drinking the martinis. What did you define as success in your future back then?
It was just seeing other people with things that you didn't have and wanting to be able, I mean, literally we might get 2 pair of jeans for the whole year and things like that, and then when you start working, you get money, then you buy your own stuff. But it's just wanting to achieve, wanting to, just be a leader, be out there in front. In fact, they put me in it was funny. My mom always told me about this. I remember about it. They said, your son's, really high up on leadership. So they put me into this program. I don't know if you remember, like they had these BOCES and they had special things for kids that had different talents. And so I got put in a group from all the local schools, like a leadership group and things like that.
And for everyone listening, BOCES in New York is kind of advanced trade tech type schools. Yeah, very good stuff.
And then they had advanced leadership stuff and different things that they wouldn't have at your school. So
wow. What do you think they saw when they saw you as a leader at school? What were they seeing?
Probably that I just didn't accept the status quo. I challenged things, and if it didn't make sense, I could logically argue, maybe not argue, but present a case that, well, why would that be the case? Or why would you think this way? And just maybe logic and critical thinking probably was the biggest thing.
And sounds like really good, powerful communication skills at a young age too. All right. So we're moving on to college. We go down to Florida. What made you go down to Florida?
My dad was living down there. So I was in upstate New York, and I just didn't see, I was supposed to just go there for the summer. I actually was accepted to Cortland State, like I said, for that program.
My brother-in-law went to Cortland.
Yeah. And I just didn't see myself having the money and doing it. I got down to Florida and I had these different visions, and I was going to work down there for a while, go to school, get my 2-year done, in a community college, and then go to University of South Florida and get into engineering down there. And really that was when the shuttle space program was going. And I met some people. I met a guy that was in the Air Force talking about, you should go over and work, you should join the military, get advanced electronics, and then you could go work, over there on the Space Coast. They're always looking for people if you get in the Navy, advanced electronics. And my cousin was in the Navy, and I asked him about it, and he said, don't go nuke. He said, don't go nuke. It's blood money. He said, but get into a 6YO electronics, 6-year obligation, electronics, advanced electronics, either electronic technician, sonar tech, or fire controlman. So I started learning about what a fire controlman was. I thought that was really cool, working with weapon systems. So that's kind of, after a couple of years beating around, I decided that's what I was going to do, and I joined.
So you joined the Navy originally because we wanted to go into the space program?
Yeah.
Marty, I'm so surprised we didn't know each other. we come up from a very similar time frame in a very similar location with very similar dreams. Yeah. The only difference is that you were really good at engineering and I failed out. All right. So we get into engineering, we get into the Navy. You have been forged already with great interpersonal relationship skills that people were seeing in you. So yeah, you had that dichotomy at a young age. Fascinating. So going to the Navy, what was that like when you first go in?
I was really nervous about going in there. I worked out really hard. I was always in great shape. And I got in, and I was a little disappointed how easy it was in boot camp. Really, I enjoyed boot camp. I thought it was fun. The chief was hilarious. The stuff that
so you enlisted. So just for clarification for people, so you enlisted first.
Yep. E1, started as an E1. Yep. Got meritoriously advanced in boot camp, was a leader in boot camp,
And I'm stopping you one more time again. I'm so sorry. Why did you enlist and decide not to go through the officer corps?
Well, I didn't have my degree. So, and I just didn't have the money, the financial wares to get my college degree. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure I really knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something, but not having any mentors, around saying, hey, you should do this or do that, or people really, my family, no true, professional people other than my cousin that was in the Navy and went and got his degree, but he's a CPA. So I didn't really have that role model in any of that capacity. So when I joined, I talked to the recruiter and I said, this is what I think I want to do based off what my cousin told me. He goes, oh yeah, well, let's take the ASVAB. If you score high enough, you can qualify. And I qualified to be a fire control. I kept saying, I want to work on weapon systems. That's what I want to do. So that's how I got in. I started as a E1 and they brought me in, and I had probably almost 2 years of college credits at that time. So,
So what were some of your first challenges that you started experiencing on the leadership side?
The leadership side was that the people that were leading you they didn't set the right example. And, I was always maybe too altruistic on my idea of what a leader should be and how to do it right. And, my mom used to call me Marty P, because I was very particular about how things had to be done, how things looked, how I, wanted things to be. And I just had a way in my mind how things should be. And it just kind of carried over to the military, which was perfect. One of the funniest things they said in boot camp, I put this in my book, is the chief said, hey, are you going to let a pair of underwear kick your ass? Because you had to fold a pair of whitey tighties a certain way. I'm sure you remember that. They had to be right or they throw them all out. And so it was about attention to detail, but also being able to see the bigger picture with a smaller picture and connecting the dots and why you needed to do something. So even in boot camp, I helped a lot of people get through it, worked with them on their PT, went and did extra PT with them or whatever they needed. I just always felt like it was a team event. I think based off sports, but also my family. We were one team.
Yeah. So you grew up doing that exact behavior. Yeah. So what's next?
Meritoriously advanced in boot camp. No problem. Went through C school. Now, when I went through school, it was very rigorous. It was 27 weeks. We started with, they called it the phone book, a book this thick. And you literally started with molecules. You got an EE degree without taking all the prerequisite courses and all the, fluff courses. And you started with a molecule with sand and built silicon and went all the way through. And that was 7 weeks. You had to get through that book this thick every day studying. And if you didn't pass the test in a week, you got set back. Wow. And so we started with 34 people in our class, ended up with 4 of us that made it all the way through without ever getting set back.
Wow.
And I missed honor grad on that by one guy beat me by like 0.2 points or something like that. I was furious, but it happened. But yeah, it was fast and furious. And then you start building a capacity to absorb lots of information and be able to retain it and then be able to build on it. And not everybody can do that. And they see there's a lot of people that just basically had mental breakdowns. And you had to study 8 hours a day, electronics study at night. And then you had that test on Friday, and some people just couldn't handle the stress. So
yeah, no kidding.
So then I got through A school, and then I picked my C school. And then when I went through C school, I was king of the hill, meaning the highest grade ever in the class and that's when I really started applying it, the foundational theory to actual practical application. And that's where I really excelled, working on a weapon system, understand a very complex system that had a system and a system. It was the first weapon system, the Phalanx weapon system. It was fully self-contained, but also fully automated, man out of the loop, did everything. And it was fully self-contained and condition-based monitoring, meaning they call it captain won't shoot or Christ won't shoot. C was close-in weapon system.
Right.
It's because it was the first true stop to fix system. If it didn't work right, because of the severity, if it doesn't work, you're taking a missile or whatever. And so that system, you had to know how it worked, every bit of it. And you had every bit of a system. You had hydraulics, you had air conditioning, you had DC motors, radars, you had a gun system. So you had mechanical, you had everything that you had to learn as a fire controlman in one system. So you had to learn so many more things than maybe other people did, but also system and platform theory, which at the time, I didn't realize how much I was learning about the future. That's why I call myself Marty McFly. And so I was king of the hill, got to the ship and just loved it. Just never even been at sea before on a ship because of course, poor. We didn't go on the ocean anywhere. I didn't think I flew in an airplane until I was 17 or something the first time. And so I got in a ship and I didn't know if I'd like it. My plan was to get in, get trained, and get out. And I absolutely love being at sea. I love the rigor of the discipline, but also learning all the time, learning how, we had to learn how to fight the Russian hordes, right? And so all the time, it's a constant learning organization. You're just getting fed. And some people hated it. I thrived off from it. I was sailor of the year on my first ship. And then I that was 4 years, did all sorts of cool stuff, worked on a weapon system, could fix anything. They let me do stuff on the bridge, even though I was enlisted.
Got to stop for a second, just because I want to dive a little deeper on some of these areas. You are doing a lot of high tech stuff very, very well.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't alone on these things, doing these things. These are things done with teams. And so
it's all about teams. Everything was about teams.
It's fun listening to you kind of gloss over because you're very natural at that stuff because of your upbringing. What were some of your earlier lessons or any humbling moments you had along the way?
Well, it was really about learning about how everybody on the team has a role. And, one of the things I was really complaining about some work center mates that weren't. Have you ever heard of Price's Law about only 10% of the people are really pulling all the weight and the rest? Yeah. So I had some of those people and it really frustrated me. But my master chief was so good. And he said, look, you're a unicorn. You're going to be frustrated. Just remember, there's people that are never going to be as good as you, but you've got to figure out how do you take a rusty tool and make them work? Because you can't do everything by yourself. If you try to do it by yourself, you're going to fail. So you've got to figure out how to engage people and use them to the level of their abilities. They may have a skill you don't understand or a skill you don't even have. Use them for their skills that you don't want to do or you don't have, and then learn how to work with the team. And you can't just be that out front runner like you're used to, and always wanting to be the best. I mean, you can do that, but it's going to be a lonely world. It's better to take people and engage them, teach them, bring them with you, and just figure out how to make a better team. And we were the best division, second division on the ship. I mean, the captain and XO always loved us, always got, something as mundane as cleaning heads and doing that. We took pride in winning the best head of the day. It's not a great, trophy, but we just took pride in ownership.
What a fantastic Master Chief.
Yeah.
I didn't hear an optic like that until I was well into my 40s. So here you are, this unicorn. You're the top 10%. As I tell my son, you're the racehorse running out front. The Master Chief gives you this great wisdom. Now, how did you put that into place and not get frustrated? Any ideas about how you strategized, how to make that rusty tool work?
Yeah, I mean, then you start. I think you have empathy. There was a guy in our division and he just was a different character. And at first I didn't appreciate the value that he had for things that he could do. And I kind of got myself sideways, a little bit frustrated. And then he worked with me. And then I started seeing the interpersonal piece of it. The guy was really a good guy. He just had a quirky personality. So there's 3 P's in life that I was taught: perspective, personality, and perception. And those 3 things you've always got to look at. If it's just a personality you're dealing with, sometimes you got to overlook the personality and see the person as a whole. And there's still somebody that's part of your team and you need them on it. You're on a ship out in the middle of the ocean. There's not like they're bringing more bodies. So no matter what, you got to figure out how to bring people along with you because you're going to need them, because you can't do it all by yourself. You got a fire on a ship, you got underway replenishment, you got all these things you got to do. And yes, maybe there's one job, like this guy just became the damage control petty officer. He loved cleaning brass valves. He loved doing the fire extinguishers. Everybody hated that, but he loved it and he took pride in it. So, it taught me a lot about how to, and then you don't like to be disrespected. So when you look at people, you've got to treat them with respect. That's one thing my mom always taught me. You're not better than anybody else. And people aren't better than you. So how do you manage that? And I think the best compliment you can have is when you meet people after so many years and they say, I really enjoyed serving with you, or,
Oh yeah.
as a leader, you were great. And I really appreciate the stuff that you taught me. So, yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. Did you recognize at the time that Master Chief was that good?
I did, because he never lost faith in me. Even when I let him down a couple times, he always knew. And even after he retired, I talked to him and he goes, I always knew that you were this guy. I always knew that you were just a different, person. And he always took time to teach me things, which I loved. I mean, he knew if he had a hard problem, fix, the weapon system or something, that he could always count on me I would stay up with him no matter what to fix it. So it's kind of cool.
What a dream relationship. Wow.
Yeah.
So Marty, I didn't mean to sidetrack you there. So what's next? We're on the bridge. You're moving forward. What's next?
Yeah. So I get to my next ship, and now I'm a first class petty officer. I made pay grade as fast as I could, always got the highest marks. Like I said, made sailor year as a second class, which is rare. Got to my next ship, made it again as a first class. And then another mentor put me under her shoulder. She was a limited duty officer, which means she went from enlisted. So in the Navy, they have these technical rates that they know that regular officers can't fill. They want these technical officers to stay in that swim lane to be those technical experts because of the complicated systems that we have in the Navy. So she was an ordnance officer, and I think she saw. So when I got in that ship, they let me again stay in junior officer watch, even though I was enlisted.
Wow.
I started driving the ship and being a JOD on different things. And, they just let me do it because I wanted to do it. I asked to do it. And there were some enlisted people that were officer decks. I said, hell, I want to do that. And
okay,
so
I want to stop there again now. Why did you ask to do that? That's an unusual thing.
So I always got bored with, when I learned something and mastered it, I was bored with it. I don't want to do, like, some people could just sit for 6 hours on the same old watch doing the same thing over and over. I'm just not that person. I just need to be engaged. I need to do something different. I don't know. It's just the way I've always been. I just don't want to do the same thing. So I want to learn something new. And I said, I can do that. And I want to challenge myself. And it was scary at times. And, driving a ship, telling the helmsman what to do, and learning rules of the road and how to drive a ship, and navigation and ship handling and maneuvering and all that.
And you did that all OJT, no school for that?
All JT. And
wow.
and the funny thing, so I had that mentor. She said, you should do this, this, and this. They have a program called limited duty officer, and you should put your package in. You got to take your chief's test and pass it, and I know you're not time and rate for chief. All you got to do is pass it, and we'll put your package in. And I had the first female captain of a surface ship that was part of a strike group, not a tender. Captain Lower became Admiral Lower. And she took me under her wing and taught me all sorts of stuff. She loved to have me on the bridge. She thought it was great.
What did they see in you? What did these people see in you? This is incredible.
I don't know. I had the willingness to learn and was determined to be the best at it.
So you have these technical expertise, you have this hunger. There's something else there too. They saw a spark of something.
Yeah. I don't know. I just always wanted to do more. And I led the division and, had the best weapon systems. My weapon systems were up more than any other ones. I was just a different person. I don't know. I just love doing it.
How were your weapon systems up more than any others?
Because I taught my guys how to fix them. I wasn't the guy always fixing them. I said, you got to learn how to do this. And my guys loved being part of the team, and they were proud of what they did. In fact, I had a guy, when I got to the ship, they said, he's a dirtbag. You got to get rid of him. I turned that guy around, and he became a master chief in the Navy, and I still talk to him. And he always tells me, he says, I remember when you made me get a watch. You made me wear a watch, so I knew how long it took me to do my maintenance card, so we'd get our maintenance done on time, and we never missed it, and things like that. So we all, it's just taking people and mentoring them.
What did you do to turn him around?
I knew he was smart, and I said, you're smarter than this. Don't let yourself down. Just look yourself in the mirror. Don't try to serve anybody else but yourself, but you're better in this. I know you are, and you're a really smart guy, and you let other people control you. And I just wouldn't let them. Now I gave them discipline, and sometimes people don't like that, but then they appreciate it after a while. And then they get the self-discipline, and pretty soon he's doing it with other people.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right.
So you have these two great mentors. What's next? You got your LDO package ready?
Yep, put my package in, and I went to shore duty, and it was so funny because I said, well, I probably won't go back to sea for a while. I'll be on shore duty because I've been at sea 7 straight years. And I said, I probably won't get picked up because first class E6 is getting picked up. It's like you're already 1% there might be 6,000 people that put their package in each year.
Right.
Maybe 500 make it. Out of them, there's senior chiefs, very few first class. So you're 0.1% of 1%. I got picked up in my year. I was in Key West doing physical security, and it was kind of funny. I told the command master chief, who was a fire control master chief, I knew him from Charleston. He says, "Hey, let's worry about making chief. Don't worry about making officer, blah, blah, blah." So nobody serviced the message when it came in. I said, well, I guess I didn't make it. I was on physical security patrol. I was at the O Club down in Key West at Trumbull Point, and I saw the Navy Times, right? And that's usually where you got your news at the time. I said, 500 new Mustangs. I said, well, maybe I know somebody, because I knew some people that put their package in. Sure enough, I go down there, and there's my name.
Wow.
So it's kind of funny. And I was, out of 500 LDOs that year, I was number 30.
Wow.
So I got commissioned pretty early in the year.
And how many years did you have in at this point?
I had just under 8.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So the Navy, is a pretty great program. They let you be commissioned to an ensign without having your degree, but then the expectation is, you're going to get your degree. They don't send you to school to get your degree like some officer programs let you go. Right. You just go to sea and you start learning. You go through all your service schools and you go right out as it. So I went from a first class, here I had to go get all my own uniforms. I didn't go through OCS first either, which was really weird, because my training pipeline to get on this Aegis cruiser, which I had no idea what I was doing, was so long. They said, hey, you're going to go to this school first, and you're going to go to, Mustang school, they called it, last. Right. So here I was, a first class petty officer, went and bought my uniforms. I hope I'm putting everything on right, and reported to Wallops Island. Right out, I got commissioned November 1st. And, the next week I was in Wallops Island going through my first Aegis school in a class with a bunch of officers and some chiefs and stuff. And they're like, okay, ensign, how's it going? And, it's just a whole new world. I had to really be quick on the uptake to figure this officer thing out without any formal training. By the time I did get to Mustang school, I was like, I'm not worried about that. I've already been doing it for 6 months.
Just as a curious side note, I know, because my son's a junior officer, I've been a junior officer, and one thing the junior officers love is Mustangs, because they know everything. Yep. Were people just grabbing onto you and just looking for guidance on stuff?
Yeah, when I first got to the ship, I had to manage the chief relationship, because the first question they'll always ask, so did you make chief? I said, well, I made board. I never lied. A lot of LDOs that make it from E6, they don't tell the truth, which is never the good plan, right? Because those guys can look it up. I just looked him in the face and I said, I was lucky enough, the way the timing worked, I made it, I made board. I probably didn't make chief. I think I had the record for it, but I don't want to assume anything. But I made LDO first. So I came here. So you were just an E6 and now you're an ensign and you're going to tell us how to do things. So, you just got to work with that union. But yeah, and then the junior officers, I went through so much training to be so I was a systems test officer. I was responsible for over 250 pieces of software to make that Aegis weapon system run, and testing it and troubleshooting it and teaching the people to operate it. So I was in charge of the combat systems training team, the combat systems maintenance training team. I had to work with the engineers to do drills together. So it was really, I was a guy that didn't have a lot of people working for me, but through my position, I had to influence, I had to lead all these people. And then I was responsible to the CSO and ultimately so I had the captain, the combat systems officer, and me, running the whole weapon system.
Marty, what's really fascinating to me is, like, here we are charging down this path really successfully, but never once have you said this is the path you wanted to be on. You just kind of seem to engage life as it's presented before you. Is that what was going on?
I mean, I wanted to be an officer. When I looked at it, I really admired the leaders that I had that were captains of ships and stuff. I said, I can do that. I want to do that.
What I'm saying is, it was interesting because you joined the Navy, not because we wanted to really join the Navy. And now we're really into the Navy.
I loved it. That's what I said. So that's kind of the way I roll. And then I saw the opportunity and I took the opportunity to get, to promote myself and get to the next level. And, that's what you do. If you're a person that's striving to just continue to see it's really testing yourself. I mean, you go on a bridge of a ship and you have all these people looking at you, and now you're responsible for giving helm orders as an ensign and being under a 06 of an Aegis cruiser. And, you can't make mistakes. It's a very challenging environment. And test yourself at another level. I mean, it's all about testing yourself, really. What am I capable of? Be fearless.
I think it's a good transition now, because now we're on the bridge. You're the officer. You've really cut your chops for a lot of years. I love the title of your book, Speed of Advance. What's that mean for everyone, and how do they apply that in their life?
So I have to fast forward a little bit to when I got out of the Navy and I worked at Caterpillar, and I started looking at how do we measure manufacturing, the people part of it, safety, quality, velocity, cost. What are the metrics that tell you you're really executing according to plan? Well, then it dawned on me, wow, SOA, speed of advance, actual versus plan, all the time. We're measuring everything. But that SOA was a lead metric on a bridge. Anytime a captain came on a bridge, you say, what's our SOA? If you didn't know it, you're in trouble, right? You have to know that, because you're managing the speed of the ship, the efficiency that ship's running at. You're either, because you're not driving the ocean just to cut holes, unless you're, sometimes you are, but for the most part, you're going somewhere and you got to be there at a certain time. So it's sort of like the ways, but you're doing the ways all the time. You're measuring yourself. And then you got to get ahead so you can slow down to do things you got to do. You may have to do an underway replenishment. You may do engineering drills where you got to go slower. So you're always managing, getting ahead, getting behind. So you're measuring yourself and then doing that mental gymnastics. How do I get here? What do I got to do? What works the best? And so it just dawned on me, like, that's how you measure things. And everything flowed up from that speed of advance. How much gas are we using? How much water are we using? We measured everything in the Navy. I didn't put it together when I was there. I understood it as a requirement. How many launches did we do today? All those things, how many rounds are left? I mean, we counted everything.
Right.
And so speed of advance to me was that symbol of, we're going to measure actual versus plan on everything. And it's going to make sense to drive the mission and what we're doing.
And one of the chapters I love, everyone is empowered to contribute, which definitely applies to managing your speed of advance. What do people do to make sure that happens?
Well, it's really about understanding your roles and what your job is part of the team, and then how do you affect that? So I'll just give you a couple of the roles that manage speed of advance. So you've got a quartermaster on a bridge. You've got a navigator and a quartermaster. A navigator sets a course, working with the Captain XO, and says, this is what we're going to take, this is where we're going to drive. Now the quartermasters are measuring it every day. And back in the day, we didn't use GPS. We had some electronic navigation, but we were measuring ourselves all the time where we're at. We had to learn celestial navigation. We had to take sun lines. So we're always measuring ourselves where we're at. Then you have the people down in the combat information systems. They're also plotting our course and speed, and they are matching it with the quartermasters to make sure there's no gap. We want to know exactly where we're at. We don't want one person to be a single point of success or failure. So everybody's backing you up on that SOA and what we need to do. The combat systems officer, is in charge of combat operations, and they are also looking at it, but they're looking at it in a different way than navigation. They're looking at it, hey, we got flight ops, we got this. Hey, I need to be able to do this exercise, whatever, we got to get ahead. So everybody's looking at it. And then the chief engineers, hey, how far are we ahead on SOA? I need to pump some stuff, or I need to take this offline and look at a bearing vibe or whatever. So everybody is focused on that common operational picture of SOA. So it's really interesting how that is something that everybody lives with on the ship and knows what it is.
Yeah, it sounds like you did a really great job in hindsight after you got out, applying that to your new life in the civilian world. Did you find yourself applying this concept of SOA to every aspect of your life?
I mean, I do, because there's things where I wanted to be, whether it was my income or certifications. I've got several certifications. I wanted to learn more about quality. I wanted to be the best at quality when I was a factory manager and ops manager, and I got qualifications in supply chain because I really needed to learn more about it. And it's just the way I did business. And I'll tell you the funniest thing: when you go to a ship, you're expected. Does the term nub mean anything to you?
Yeah.
So when you first go to a ship and you got to learn all these new systems and that ship, and you got to learn your way around the ship, you're a nub until you get up to speed as quick as possible. So when I went to CAT, I was on an aircraft carrier, and I learned that aircraft carrier as fast as I could, because I don't want to be a nub. And when I got to CAT, I used that same, kind of mentality. And people were like, how do you know this much about all these bulldozers or track type tractors already? I said, I live on the shop floor. I don't sit at my desk. I go down and learn. I ask people. I talk to people on the floor. I learn everything I can from other people. And then because I want to know about this, I want to understand why this is like that. And how does this work? And what's the best way to do it? So it's just, everything I've ever learned, I've applied going forward.
It's funny. I think out of all the guests I've had so far, everyone has a theme of being really super curious. And you didn't say you were, but I'm going to apply your curiosity and this hunger for learning, because that is what you kept bringing to absolutely everything you touch. And it's every single walk of life. So here I am. I'm a dad. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a mother. And I'm trying to raise a family, and I'm trying to balance work. How can I start applying Speed Advance to managing my life to be more productive, to bring that team with me along on that ride?
So I'm a big vision board person. So you got to have a long-term vision to know where you're going, to kind of set that North Star. You got to have that course. Right. So to me, Speed Advance, if you don't have a course and you don't know where you're going, it doesn't work, right? If you're a bumblebee, that doesn't work. So you really got to know what that North Star is. And I'm a big believer in a vision board. If we could take the camera out here, I'd show you mine, and it's full, and people love looking at my vision board. But you've got to know where you want to be, when you want to be there by. And then the thing, you got to have belief in yourself that how am I going to set these parameters to know that I'm getting where I want to get, whether it's I want to get in shape, I want to be better at golf, I want to be better at work, at my job. How do I get that next promotion? Talk to people about how to get there, how they get there, what does it take? And then driving yourself to believe that you have the capacity to do these things, that nobody can stop you from this. One thing my mom always said, you discipline yourself or somebody else will, or something else will, and then nobody can stop you from something that you want to do if you really want to do it. So the determination and perseverance are things that if you inherently build them into yourself and have that self-talk that I can do this, I'm going to be this next week, this is the way I'm going to be, here's my next step. And it may only be one step, or it may be a whole leap sometimes that you slingshot yourself past that, but you always have to look at that forward movement and how am I going to get there? And sometimes it feels like you're stalled out forever, but you keep doing those things to build that spring, that momentum, and all of a sudden it pops. And then, like me, I got picked for officer. All those things I did up until that point, it never hurt to work harder than somebody else. It never hurt to learn more things. It never hurt to do these things, even though you may say, well, hell, I didn't get any results. A lot of people don't have the patience to wait until the results, show themselves from what you're doing.
Well, great life lessons in there. As I'm listening to you sharing all these things that you do on that vision board, what really struck me also was, boy, that is mentally healthy. You're creating really good habits. You're keeping yourself accountable to the things. And every time you hit a milestone in there, your brain's rewarding it because you're making progress on things. And then also on the vision board, I imagine none of these things can be accomplished alone. So you're creating relationships along the way. You're forging trust, making teams, being a resource for others, solving other people's problems. I mean, all these things. What a great, fantastic system.
Yeah, I mean, the top thing is always having friends, keeping in touch with people, family first, trying to, just drive. The quality of life doesn't come from things. The quality of life comes from relationships. And that's a hard thing for people. I mean, I've always enjoyed the relationships. Like, just why is the military so much fun? Well, that camaraderie, no matter how miserable you are. I spent a year in Kuwait in a tent in a sand. Using porta-johns, but we had the best time together as a team eating MREs because, that camaraderie, you could go through your whole life and have a very successful career and never experience that esprit de corps, doing something hard, doing something miserable together as a team. It doesn't have to be miserable.
There's nothing better than shared suffering. There really is. Us Marines, we enjoy that as well.
The Marines love it. And it's a shared bond that you can always go back no matter how many years and say, yeah, I remember when we were in Kuwait and it was, we didn't know how we were going to make this happen, and it happened. And it's probably one of the fondest memories that you'll have.
Absolutely. Hey, Marty, time has flown by faster than I could ever imagine. What's something you wanted to make sure you shared with the audience that I was a horrible host and I neglected to ask you about?
Well, I think going forward, looking at where we're at in our economy and where we're at, after COVID, and we're looking at what's happened with our supply chains and things like that, we've got a lot of things we need to do as a country to kind of correct some things. But just throwing technology at it without understanding the people element and how to converge people, process, and technology without a strategy and understanding the concepts in the book. That's why I wrote the book at the level I did. People said, well, it's a pretty easy read. I said, yep. I could create the most technical, book in the world about how to screw these bolts together and make this stuff work. But I really thought about, if we're going to be successful, you got to have a strategy. You got to have your vision board of what that looks like. And these things in there are tried and true things. They're not just an idea. They're not some consulting things. I tried to show people how they worked in the military, but also how I used them in the commercial world. And the concepts, regardless of whether you're in manufacturing or what business you're in, should be applicable as we go forward, because the fourth industrial revolution is really going to be very challenging on our society and people around the world. It's going to change things, probably like my grandmother was born when, in the early 1900s and stuff. I always talked to her. She lived till she was 100. The things that she saw and those kind of advances that we're going to see those. And it's going to be mind blowing for people our age. Right. Because we started, you look, we were the remote controls when we were kids and stuff, and so.
There was, I remember when I got my first beeper in the FBI before cell phones even came around.
Yep. I know I had a pager. I thought I was the bomb when I could see sports scores on my pager. I'm like, are you kidding?
Oh, I know. It's so funny. Yeah. Marty, it's been a real treasure. Marty, where can people go to find out more about you and how to deal with and engage the fourth industrial revolution?
Our company, C5MI, which is born from command control, computers, communication, collaboration, management insights, that came directly from one of the jobs I had in the military. So our company, www.c5mi.com, we have a full model from core ERP, digital core systems, all the way up to full automation that we provide our customers, leveraging SAP software and other technologies. So there, if people need help, they want thought leadership, they want to actually implement things. We're doing the largest extended warehouse management system in the DoD with the Defense Logistics Agency. So our company is pretty diverse. And then if you just want to learn more about the book, or you want to leverage my knowledge, www.speedadvance.com. I can do consulting there too, just talking about what goes on with the book and how to think about things differently.
Yeah, and it'll all be in the show notes. And Marty, if nothing else, from everyone listening to this show with all that you offer, there's no doubt if you employ you, it will get done.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for having me on. It was a great conversation, brought back a lot of great memories.
Oh, great, Marty. Thanks again for coming on, and best wishes, and we'll talk to you all soon.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Forged by Trust. If you took away at least one new idea, make a note of it and pass it on to someone else who may need it. If you're interested in more information about how I can help you forge your own trust building and communication strategies for yourself or your organization, please visit my website at www.peopleformula.com. I'm looking forward to sharing my next Forged by Trust episode with you next week when we chat with Deeke Kuppenhaver and being a change maker.